Welcome back to Every Horror Film or Horrors Forever. And we continue on the road to Halloween Ends with a little bit of a detour here. We got Rob Zombie's 1 and 2. Rob Zombie, of course, remade Halloween in 2007 and had his sequel in 2009, Halloween 2. And it has been I would say, probably the two most controversial films in the entire franchise, in my opinion, because there are Halloween purists that absolutely hated what Rob Zombie did. And then you have other people who were a little bit more open to the idea who actually enjoyed it. So we decided to combine both these reviews since they, kind of flow together so much. So we'll do both of them together. We'll start with Halloween 1, obviously first. Jeff, when you watch this movie and when you kind of heard the news that Rob Zombie was going to do the remake, what were your initial thoughts exactly, and what did you think was going to happen?
So, obviously, the Halloween franchise took a very comical and campy and cheesy detour when they ran out of ideas. Um, when they decided to reboot it and or remake it in 2007, 5 or 6 years after the last one, Resurrection, um, a lot of people were chomping at the bit to get it. Um, as far as personally, I like a few Rob Zombie songs, but I'm going to be honest with you, I do not like him as a director. His style of films is not my style. I really don't like any movie he's made. I've seen him in concert. He's a dope, metal musician, but um, if I have an option, I'm not watching one of his movies. So, um, but there are people who follow him. He has kind of a cult following in the cinema world, so you got to respect that. He's going to bring a new fan base of Halloween, maybe. And I think the studio's idea was they needed to get someone like Rob Zombie to get in there. But before we had the James Wan's and the Andy Muschietti's and the Jordan Peele's of horror, Rob Zombie was a pretty titular name. Um, so there was a lot riding on Halloween 2007. People wanted more, people wanted the same, people wanted less, people didn't know what they wanted, you know. So he had some big shoes to fill, and I'm going to be honest with you. I really, really, really like 2007's Halloween. I really like it. I watch it every year for Halloween. I love it so much because it is a very strange combination of two different movies that I want to see. One is the original that we know and love, shot for shot, and another is a prequel about what happened to Michael Myers between his first kill and 1978, or that fateful night he came home. Him as a kid, him in Smith's Grove, him growing up and becoming what he is. Such an interesting idea, and I really think that's the only direction they could have gone after Resurrection. And the first half of this movie is that, and the second half is the iconic movie that was remade. Man, the first half of this movie, I love it, dude. I really love it.
So I never really cared too much for the Rob Zombie films whenever I was growing up and I was younger. They at the time they weren't for me. So I respected him doing something different, but they weren't for me. So it's been a while since I actually sat down and watched these movies, especially part two. I think I've only seen part two like once or twice. So I really only remember the first 30 minutes.
Mhm.
But that was it. So this was kind of like going in, after a while and just going in with a open mind and just trying to watch it, knowing what I know now. And to be honest with you, I enjoyed a lot of 2007 as well. Is it my favorite? It's not, but there's a lot of stuff in here that I do like. There's some stuff that I don't like, but for the most part, I was not pissed off as opposed to what some other people will say, any Halloween purists, I guess. I think I like some of Rob Zombie's movies. Like I said in the past episode, I like House of a Thousand Corpses. I like The Devil's Rejects. And I like that whole little trilogy he has there with those characters. Um, and he said some good stuff. I've never really listened to his music. That's not my kind of music, but I know he does have a pretty big following. So, for the most part, I liked most of what I saw. I could sit down and I could probably add this to my yearly Halloween tradition. I will say that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's it's tough because it's the easiest possible option for him would have been just a straight shot for shot remake, which he did, which is what people wanted. So he rebooted it, but the original story that we've never seen before of young Michael is something that I think fans had wanted to see for a long time. I just think it's super underappreciated and very underrated. It's a very cool story, and honestly, I think it's done very well. I Because we've never seen any alternative version of it, I couldn't imagine it any differently.
So I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. And kind of my counter argument to, I guess people would say, is it's scary because we don't know what Michael's motive is. Like,
Hmm.
okay, there's two campuses. There's people that they like a motive, they like the sister storyline, or I don't like when he has anything. He just is a random person. So my counter argument to that is, first off, this is Rob Zombie's remake. This is not John Carpenter's remake. This is not Rick Rosenthal's remake. This is not blah 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 blah's remake. This is Rob Zombie's remake. This is his version. So the good thing about that is if you don't like it, then you always have the original to fall on. That's perfectly fine. But I
Hmm.
never understood the argument that said I didn't like the remake because it shows why Michael does this. I'm like, okay, well, what would you want him to do? Just remake the same movie and then just put it out there, and then people get mad and say, "All he did was remake the first film." I mean, what's he supposed to do? I mean, he has to do something and try something different. So in that aspect, I never really understood why people got so upset about showing why Michael is the way he is, coming from, a messed up family, a broken home, he's bullied at school. Is it a little generic? Yes, but I didn't have a huge problem with it.
Yeah, and that's the ongoing battle with Halloween that will never stop. It's like, okay, do you want more or do you want less? What do you want? Because having the same won't work. My stupid cat, get off the wire. Thank you. Thrown you down 3 times already. All right, but when you do a remake of anything, and remakes are huge right now. Remakes, reboots, requels, whatever you want to call it. Um, Before the craze of remakes and live action remakes, there wasn't many because cinema was still kind of new. So to remake a classic like Halloween, I said it in the very first review we did. It's an A plus. It's a timeless classic. It can never be redone. It can never be remade. You try to make it shot for shot. You try to recapture that magic. You're gonna fail miserably. So you have to bring something new to the table. And as with any story, I like hearing it told from different people's perspectives. You know, if Halloween was remade by James Cameron, it would be totally different from if it was remade by Ridley Scott. If it was remade by Rob Zombie. Everyone's got a different idea of how to tell the story, and yeah, if you don't like it, go back to the original. This has changed nothing about what you love. It's not a sequel that's expanded the storyline that you have to get to the next round. You don't like it, ignore it. Stick with what you know. Cat, come on. Thank you.
This cat is very interested in Rob Zombie's Halloween remake.
Got a lot of opinions, but no. So like I said, he's got big shoes to fill. It's a lot of studio overshadowing, trying to come down and say, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. So Rob Zombie, man, kudos to him for taking on this task. It is not an easy task to accomplish, and I think what he added to the story, while still staying true enough, has done it justice. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a huge problem with it. I think it's good. Let's kind of dive into it a little bit. So, what we get is two halves. Uh,
Well, I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna get this beast out of here. This feral beast. I gotta get out of here.
this
Hey, come
feral
on.
beast, watch
Pulling down
out.
my wires. There you go. All right. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
All good. So essentially what we get here is two movies in one. in this, or two halves in one movie. The first half is the Michael Myers prequel. So we start out with young Michael, who would later become a rapper and would do a song with yours truly.
Yeah, man.
If you don't believe it, look it up. I'll put the link in the description. I might even play it at the end of this video here. So we get a young Michael Myers, and we see his world. He's in a broken home, and shout out to Rob Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, because I think pretty much every movie he makes, she's like one of the main characters. So she's got a pretty sweet gig. Like, my husband directs the movies, I star in them. It's a nice one
Yep.
punch. So
Yeah.
she is Michael's mom in this film. We got the sister Judith, we got their stepdad, and then we have a young baby, which turns out to be Lori. We don't know that at the time, but and we kind of see inside his home life, and it's a broken home. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, and this is one of the main critiques of Rob Zombie's films, and one that, while I'm not a fan of it, I understand. That's just how he works, how he is the foul mouth, white trash language. I mean, the F you, F this, it just way over the top. All the girls and pretty much all the movies kind of seem like they could be porn stars in a way. That's just how the direction that he moves. And it's not for me, but at the same time, I don't have a problem with it. It's his take, it's his version of it.
Yeah, the word I most, or two words I most associate with Rob Zombie movies are trailer trash, for better or for worse. And he knows that it's kind of his shtick, and he's good at it. Um, it's not my cup of tea. I don't like that kind of style, but it fits in this particular story. The opening 5 minutes, where it's around the breakfast table with Michael's mom cooking and Michael's stepdad on disability sitting at the table, swearing up a storm, the baby crying, the teenage sister, dressing promiscuous upstairs. Like, that opening 5 minutes, it's a very uncomfortable to watch family dynamic.
Yeah.
But in this story, it is such good storytelling. It really hits the nail on the head. Like, yeah, man, a kid who grew up in this. I think the whole theme for this movie was nature versus nurture with this whole prequel section, and this is definitely uh, the type of nurturing that would result in Michael Myers.
Yeah. So we get that, and we see he comes from a broken home. And we kind of get onto his school life. He's bullied, and his mom is a stripper in this movie, and he kind of gets in the scene where he's in the bathroom with these two kids, and they're kind of making fun of him. And one of the kids has got like a little news clipping of like, hey, or a flyer, be like, hey, I heard your mom's out here dancing, thinking about printing all these out and putting them around the school. And Michael, he doesn't take too kindly to that, because a little bit later on in this film, he starts up to his killing ways, and he beats the shit out of this kid with a massive stick. And
Yeah.
it's a really uncomfortable scene. It's kind of brutal to see a young kid do this, as opposed to the original film where Michael's 6 years old and he's just a regular kid, and all of a sudden he just snaps. So we start to get into that psyche, and it's, like I said, it is a little generic, but we get that. You can see where that environment is fostering that type of behavior.
Yeah, it's a very interesting um, psychological study. I feel like this is the kind of opening act that would be studied in like an intro to psychology
Yeah.
course. You have Michael killing small animals, like killing his pets and washing the blood off his hands and denying it. Then you have him like beating his bullies almost to death with a stick. It's very it's a very realistic and um unwelcome look into that kind of nurturing situation, like I said. And what's interesting, Dig Ferris, who played young Michael, it did such an amazing job really portraying that kind of conflict with such little expression. I think he did a phenomenal job as a kid because child actors do not have an easy gig. They're almost always terrible. He did a great job. And it's interesting that I felt myself sympathizing for this kid who killed small animals and like basically murdered someone with a log. Like I feel really bad for this kid, you
Yeah.
know? And that's a really interesting feeling that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and I think that's just part of Rob Zombie's angle that he was going for, is that he was, trying to, you would never look at a Halloween film and say, "Wow, I kind of feel bad for Michael Myers." Like, no, you would never
Never,
say that
never.
until this movie, and he really builds that up, and that's just part of the angle that he's going for, which I think he does a good job. So yeah, you do feel kind of bad for him, just because you're not sure if deep down he's a good kid, but it's certainly not helping with the stuff that's going around. So then we get on to Lori in this film, who is played by Scout Taylor Compton, and she does a really good job. And she's obviously with her adopted family. At this point, she does not know that she is the sister of Michael Myers. After the death of her family, pretty much, when Michael's kind of sitting on the front porch and his mom comes home, after that, the sheriff's department would take her and kind of, get her out of town, and she would get adopted by the Strodes. So she becomes adopted by them, and she's got two friends, just like in the original. One of them being Danielle Harris from Halloween's 4 and 5 and 6, I guess you could say. So she's back, and she is playing one of Laurie's friends. So I think that was kind of cool. That's a nice nod. Super cool to see her back. And they're just your normal promiscuous teens that get into stuff, and she plays Annie, the daughter of Sheriff Brackett, who's played by Brad Dourif, who is the voice of Chucky. So there's a lot of horror characters in this movie in a way.
Yeah, Rob Zombie did his homework. Danielle Harris, of course, played Jamie in 4 and 5. She was little last time we saw her, so she's been really passionate about Halloween and more horror movies, more indie horror movies. But she's always been very passionate about Halloween. So to see her come back as not Jamie but as Annie is good on her, man. I got a lot of respect for Danielle Harris. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
Having Brad Dourif as Sheriff Brackett. Look, I get it, man. He's Chucky. He's not Sheriff Brackett. Let's just put it that way. I appreciate you for putting a horror icon in there. I was almost expecting Robert Englund to show up, but he didn't. Cool and good on you for putting Brad Dourif in there, but in a role like Sheriff Brackett, I don't know. No, I'm not convinced. But yeah, so you have the same. We're not going to go over the story of the second half of this movie because it's the same as 1978, the original movie. It's the friends, except for the beginning and the very end. But even before you get introduced to them, you just follow Michael in his time at Smith's Grove as a kid in there, and it does some time jumps. You get introduced to Dr. Loomis in this movie, who is played by Malcolm McDowell is his name, right?
Yes, correct.
Malcolm McDowell. Now, what did you think of Malcolm McDowell as Samuel Loomis? Because obviously there will never be another Donald Pleasance, and no one can do it like Donald Pleasance. Did Malcolm McDowell do it justice?
What I'm going to say might be really controversial, I guess, but I think in number one, in this one, he's fine. I think in number two, he's really good. I love the character in number two. I know we'll get into that, but in this film, I think he does, he does just fine. He gives off some of the same lines, but he's also been on record saying he never watched the original Halloween with Dr. Loomis. So he really had no idea. So he kind of, he went in blind a little bit. And I think he did some nice things. I don't think it was the best. It's not Dr. Loomis, but he did a little bit more of a like reserved type, where Dr. Loomis was a little bit crazy, where Dr. Loomis, he really, really cares and he really tries. And at the end, he just kind of like, I'm sorry, man, there's nothing left I can do. And he just kind of cleans his hands and walks away.
Yeah, this this Dr. Loomis this time around kind of struck me more as like an amateur, or not as tenured in his field. He kind of struck me as a little green in the realm of child psychology, and I don't think he was as old as Donald Pleasance was, but I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting to see. I think he played off Michael Myers very well. Their sessions talking as he's a kid and he's a child psychologist. I think there was good chemistry between them, where Loomis was kind of not 100% invested in him, and Michael wasn't 100% opening up to him. I think I think they played off each other pretty well. And the progression of Michael Myers as he slowly becomes quieter or more kept to himself. Really, dude, honestly, I'm obsessed with this first half of this movie. I watch it every year for this. Like sometimes I'll even turn it off in the second half just because I only wanted to watch the first half. But it's very compelling, and I like it a lot. I'm just replaying it in my head. Just I like it. And you got Danny Trejo, who plays the custodian in Smith's Grove, who's like the nice guy, like the only employee there who's never nice to Michael, because even the nurses are calling him ugly, and other groundskeepers are being mean to him. So Danny Trejo plays like his friend on the inside, and keep your head up, Mikey. And that was really nice to see that kind of guardian role from Danny Trejo, and plays a big role when Michael finally grows up, huh?
I always always feel really bad when he kills him. It's like, ah, man, like, yeah, he actually cared, he tried. But I always laugh whenever he says that line. It's like, I was good to you, Mikey. I was good to you.
All right. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, man. But yeah, eventually Michael grows up and he becomes this giant hulking figure, played by Tyler Mane. Now, John Carpenter said he wasn't a fan of how big Michael was. Tyler Mane's a huge guy. I don't have the stats on him, but he's enormous. He's probably the biggest Michael Myers we've ever gotten. What did you think about that?
So before I get on to that point, I just want to say, with the prequel part, just to catch everybody up, just in case they don't know. So essentially, what happened is Michael, he got tired of everybody, and he went and basically killed his family, his stepdad, his sister, and all that stuff. And then his mom figures out what happens, and then they take him to Smith's Grove. That's where he is there with Dr. Loomis and his mom coming to visit him. And then slowly but surely he kind of shuts down from there. So regarding Tyler Mane, I like what he did. I think he did a good job. Yeah, I do think it is this isn't his fault. This is just Rob Zombie's, direction. I think he did a really good job in the role, but I think the scenes where he during the day when he's stalking are really out of place because it works in the original because he's a normal sized guy and he's kind of like in the back. But if you're just looking outside one day and you just see this like 6'10" guy with this white mask and jumpsuit on, you're gonna be like, holy shit, somebody called the cops. This is a giant out here. It is a little off to me, but other than that, I really like his tenacity. I like the looks in his mannerisms. I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, and I was convinced thoroughly that Tyler Mane was a grown-up Dave Fairch. Like I was thoroughly convinced that the child that we had seen had grown up into this hulking figure. So the transition there, it worked very well. They were very in sync. Yeah, what you're saying is right about him stalking in the daylight. A 6'10" guy in a mask in the middle of the day is going to catch some attention, regardless of Halloween or not. That's an interesting point. I'm going to jump right to because a lot of the things that I think feel off about the second act are probably because we're looking at a shot for shot remake with different than what we're familiar with aspects. I mean, we're looking at a different guy in the same position. Like it, like if you wake up tomorrow morning and you go out to your driveway to get in your car and it's a totally different car than you've ever driven in your life, you're gonna know that something's off, even though it's in your driveway. So it's tough for real, and that lack of familiarity in what should be a familiar setting is very hard to grasp for people.
Yeah, I agree. So essentially, at this point, we've Michael is pretty much shutting down, and that's one of the progressions in the first half that I like is just slowly but surely he just kind of starts making these masks, these makeshift masks, and he just kind of starts shutting down. And you're wondering like, why is he shutting? Why is he not talking? It's just you're not really obviously because of what happened, but he's just not conveying that. And then he just kind of stops talking. And then one day, you know, Dr. Loomis and his mom, they go and they take a little walk, and he's gonna kind of tell her, like, look, like Michael's not talking. Like, I think we need to take this like in another direction. And she leaves him with this nurse. And she kind of makes a remark towards him about the baby not being kin to him because he's too ugly or whatever. And all of a sudden he's like, screw that, and he kills her. And pretty much from that point on, Michael is no longer Kid Michael. He's become serial killer Michael. And his mom just cannot take it anymore. And I'm pretty sure that night or close to it, she goes home and she ends up, shooting herself, and she's done. And Michael was all by himself. We jump to the future, and he's this giant beast in this, locked up in handcuffs. And Dr. Loomis is just like, look, man, there's nothing else I can do for you. I gotta move on. And Michael just stands there. He doesn't do anything, and he leaves.
He leaves, and Michael's finally abandoned. The nurse, talking shit and then getting killed, and some of the other kills in this movie. I think this script does a really good job of balancing out the kills in a way that makes you go every time you convince yourself, oh, he's standing up for himself, he's in the right. That he does something to make you think, oh, he's just a psychopath who kills for fun. And he's in the wrong. Like every time you think you see the reasoning behind what he does, he yanks it out and undoes it by just killing for no reason. Like
That's a
killing
good
the
point.
nurse, killing the nurse because she insulted him and his sister makes sense. Killing Danny Trejo, who his last words were, "I was always good to you, Mikey," and he was, shows okay, you're just killing for no reason. So which is it? It's yin and yang. I mean, are you inherently evil naturally, or is it the nature, or is it the nurture? Is it the environment that's provoking you? So the whole nature versus nurture argument was done super well in this movie. I'm crazy about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They do a good job of writing that line in between where it's like, you're not trying to make him completely sympathetic for like, oh my God, he just was treated so bad. And then he does these other things. You're like, well, shit, this dude's like, we shouldn't feel bad.
Yeah.
It's a good line. So, we get this scene which I don't I watched the director's cut for this. I'm assuming you watched the same one. And we get these two guards, night guards that work at Smith's Grove or whatever. And they do this scene where they rape this new inmate. It's weird. And they do it in Michael's cell. And I don't know why they're so obsessed with trying to piss him off. I guess maybe because he's so big. And he really doesn't care about what's going on until they start messing with his masks. And then he flips the switch and he starts taking people out. He kills them both. And then he kills Danny Trejo. And then at that point, he's out. He's on the loose. And then they call Dr. Loomis. They're like, he's on the loose. He's on the loose. He's out. And he's like, shit, I leave for like half a day. This happens.
Yeah. And from that point on, we have the very familiar story that we got from 1978, where it opens up with him breaking out. Now, but before we get to his breakout, that scene, super controversial. I think it's only in the director's cut. Very uncomfortable to watch. But to go back to what I just said, that is a perfect scene in my opinion. Not because of obviously what happens, but what it tells you, because these two guards who are raping this innocent prisoner in Michael's cell to provoke him, right? So they're doing something inherently evil, right? And Michael's sitting idly by. One of the guards starts messing with his property, messing with his homemade masks, something that he has a connection to, and that's when he stands up and he kills him, right?
Yeah.
So that's perfectly 50-50. Okay, is he standing up for the girl? Like, is he coming to her defense and killing these scumbags? Or is he only being a bully because they ruined his stuff? And you never really know for sure. And that's why I don't believe the people who are like, oh, it explains why he's bad. I don't want to hear it. because this movie, just because it shows you the past, doesn't mean it explains whether it's nature versus nurture. It's not. It's never made totally clear if he's just inherently evil or he's just provoked by his environment. So people who say that this movie just explains too much about why he does what he does, I don't think it does. I think it just shows more examples of him figuring out when to do what he does. So I don't think it explains too much. I think it puts that 50-50 yin yang on display very well, and it's part of the reason I like this section so much.
Yeah, I agree. And my argument to everyone else that says we don't need to be explained why he's bad. So let's say that Rob Zombie did a film where he pretty much he didn't even do the first part. He just jumped right into the second part. And then what would your analysis be? Like, oh, this is just a shot for shot movie. Why did he do this? So it really was a tough situation for him to be in because he really wasn't going to make everyone happy. So
Yeah, it really adds a lot between the lines of the original story we know and love without changing the story that we know and love. It really adds a lot of. It's basically like if you take a short story and you stretch it out to a full novel, is kind of what he does. And it's hard to do, and I can see why people don't like it, but um, I like everything that he added in this, as trashy as it may be.
and at the same time, I mean, I just, you know, I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't know why people, don't want him to do the same thing. He does something different. They don't like it. That's just how it is. So,
They look at the top of the iceberg. They never look at, like, they don't think about it. They want that surface visual pleasure, and that's it.
yeah. And it's like, no one really, I'm not going to say people don't like the second part of this movie because people do, but no one, the majority of the reason why people like or dislike this movie is the first part. No one just,
Right.
I came here for the second part of the movie. It's like, oh, no, you didn't. You would really go watch the original if you came for the
Yeah.
first part because you want to see the stuff that hasn't been told yet.
Right.
So, anyways, so we're gonna kind of jump to the ending here, because, like we said, it's pretty much just almost a shot for shot remake. Certain things happening, people just being put in different positions. So basically, what happens is the whole plot unfolds, and people are getting killed off just like in the original. And Michael, he's going around. So this time, he's kind of killing, instead of killing like just the teenagers, he's going around and killing other people that are kind of around. He kills Lori's parents, and that scene's brutal. It's great. Another thing I like about this movie is that, yes, it's bloody, it's gory, but it's not done to the point where it's like, okay, this is like just torture porn. Like he's,
Right.
like, he's messing people up really, really bad, but it's not like overdone in your face. I mean, but it's done with enough gore and enough stuff to where I'm like, damn, that was brutal. Like, this is bad. And then that's it. It's not like over the top. He's like doing all this macabre, crazy stuff with their bodies,
Yeah, yeah, it's not as absurdist as some other movies. It's just a very gritty 2007 remake of 30 years earlier, and
Yeah.
I think it's as gory and as crazy as the studio would allow.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good point. I mean, I think any more would have been like, okay, this is probably gonna get like an X rating, which is not gonna fly for a studio. So I think they do a good job with that. So we're kind of going through, and what's going around. He's killing people, and I did forget to mention this in the beginning. One scene that I don't think it's bad. I think it's actually really funny every time I see it. Is when Judah's boyfriend, the night that he snaps, whenever they're having sex, and he pulls out that mask, uh, and then once Michael kills her, there's one scene where she's like walking down the hallway, like limping. You just see this little kid come out with this giant oversized mask on, and he just looks at her. I
This
laugh every
Tyler,
time.
dude, this Tyler Maine-sized mask on this little 7-year-old boy.
This little kid, he's just walking down with it. It just cracks me up every time. I love it. And I kind of like how he gets his mask in this movie. It's believable. I like how he gets his mask in the original, but this also works. This guy just brought this mask, and it just right place, right time. And he's like, okay, I'm going to use this. It's just laying on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a nice little story there, a nice little symbolism there. Forgot to ask, what do you think about the mask?
I think that this is one of the best masks they've ever done.
Yes, I agree with you
Mask.
100%.
They do such a good job. I mean, it's to me, it's like top three. I mean, they
Yeah.
to me, the weathered look in this looks more like a legitimate weathered look than in Halloween 2018. Not saying I don't like 2018. I do. I love that mask. But that is a more like as if it just looks like you can really tell that they put makeup and added cracks into it. That mask in Rob Zombies looks like if you buried that in a house, like underneath the floorboards for like 20 years, and then you came back and picked it up, that's what it would look like.
Yeah, yeah, it looks expensive as shit. That's what it does, and it looks really good. It's top three for me too. It's not top one, but it's top three for me.
Yeah, they do a great job, and some of the scenes with the lighting and the way that he looks and just it's great. They did a really good job with the mask. So props to them for doing that. So
Mhm.
kind of jump into the ending here. Um, Michael was on this path to reunite with Lori, and he kind of, he abducts her and then he takes her and he puts her at Judith's headstone at this one point in the Myers house. And he kind of, and this is a part that really throws people off. They don't like it, but he kind of gets on his knees and he pulls out this picture of them whenever they were kids. And he's trying to tell her, like, hey, like, this is me and you. But she has no idea. So she's like freaking the hell out. And he's just like, why don't you understand me? Like, and you really get the sense that he's really is trying to make up for that lost connection, because in the beginning of the film he does show a lot of love for the little baby.
No. Yeah, that scene is obviously very different than the original. I think if we didn't have the first half of the movie and we only started with what 1978 showed us, and then they tried to pull that off, where he pulled out a picture of him and a baby, and we as the audience know that, but Lori doesn't know that, and it was never shown on screen, I think that would have been stupid. I think that wouldn't have transitioned well. I think that would have been really corny. But to bookend the movie the way it starts with him holding her as like the only innocent one in that family, and then
Mhm.
him trying to show her like that connection, like that, it worked really well in this iteration of it. But like in Halloween 2 way back when, or like Halloween 4 or 6 or whatever, if he had gotten down, or H2O, if he had gotten down on his knees and pulled out a baby picture of Lori and like tried to show her it, I would have laughed in my TV's face. I think that would have been stupid. But because we saw that nice scene with him and Lori, it has more of an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So she doesn't understand, so she's freaked out and he kind of lets his guard down. She stabs him a couple times and she runs away. Let me get this whole scene where Loomis, he knows this is happening, so he's coming after him. He's trying to save her, and we get this point where um, you know, they're all three in the house, and then Michael, he kind of injures Loomis pretty badly, and then he's going after Lori, and he's trying to kill her, and they fall in the pool, and then Loomis comes from behind, and he's like, he's zoning in on her, and then he's just like, Michael, stop, and he, you could tell that he really cares, because this is someone he's looked after for a long time, where Loomis is kind of like, okay, I don't care that I've looked after him for 15 years. Like, he has to be stopped. He knows the danger. But with this Loomis, he's more like sympathetic. He's like, I really don't want to do this, but I have no choice. And then he starts shooting him. And, she falls out. Loomis picks her up and they go get in the car. Michael breaks out of nowhere, breaks in the glass, and, he kind of hurts Loomis. And it's just her and Lori kind of at the top of the house. And I love this part. I love it, where she's got the gun and he just looks at her, and then he just runs full throttle, just tackles her off the cliff, and they fall on to like the front lawn of the house. And then they wake up and they have no idea what's going on. I mean, the tension and the suspense and the brutality of it, I think it's great.
It is. It really is. And this ending is obviously very different from 1978. I can see why people don't like it, but man, it just tracks well because we see him as a kid and we feel that even though we're looking at someone who's 6'10", I still feel like he's the kid behind the mask. And
Yeah.
I think that was the whole idea. And Tyler Mane did a great job, for real. And that's part of the reason why I said in like how the Halloween 4 review, I want my Michael Myers to be bigger. He just nailed it, man. And I just felt like it was a kid behind the mask the whole time. I really did.
Yeah, I mean he did a really good job, and I like the point that you made about him still being the kid in the mask, because the way they shot with the prequel and the build up and the, you know, the characterization of everybody and the relationships, it just really, I wouldn't say you feel bad for him, but you just like, you still
Get it?
feel a little bit, and you're like, man, like at the end of the day, like he's still this kid that, like, behind this mask, he's not just some random guy. So, you know,
Yeah.
it just kind of depends on which one that you like, but I liked it. And then obviously at the very end, you know, they fall off the top of the house and they're laying there, and Lori falls on top of them and she grabs the gun and she keeps trying to shoot and it keeps firing blanks. There's one bullet left in there and he kind of grabs her arm and then she shoots, and all of a sudden there's blood everywhere and she's just freaking the hell out, and cut scene. That's the end of the movie.
Yep. And that's the end of the movie, and it's as ambiguous or cliffhangerish as the original. So that being said, I mean, it's the movie we know and love and more. So what kind of grade do you give this thing?
I am going to give Rob Zombie's Halloween, I'm going to give it a C plus for me. I liked it a lot. I don't there's some things in there I don't like regarding, you know, just, I think the dialogue is pretty bad. You know, the foul mouth white trash stuff, you know, that's not for me, but that's okay. It just doesn't, you know, sit well with me during some points of the film. I do like, you know, a lot of the prequel stuff that they show us. I do think that the second half is, I really wish that he would have just went for it and just did something like, kind of like he did with the second one. You know, take the original source material, but not do a shot by shot remake in the second half. If he would have did something completely different, I probably would have bumped this up quite a bit. But you know, I really like the first half. The second half isn't bad. It just, you kind of know what's going to happen. So, you know, if you've seen the original, you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going to happen. And that does happen. It happens in a different way, but it happens. To me, that was a little generic, but this is a very good C plus for me. I really enjoyed this movie. I can't put it up there, but I do like it. And now that I've seen it and I really enjoyed it, I probably plan on adding this to my viewing every October, along with my 15 other Halloween movies I have to watch.
All right. Yeah, what you said makes sense. And before we had 2018 and this new trilogy, this was the most modern iteration that we had. This was the closest thing we had to today's cinema.
Yeah.
So it obviously caught a lot of attention. Um, I don't like the trailer trash aspect of it. It works well in Michael's household, but sometimes it gets a little bit too much. I get it. I really do. Goes back to the nature versus nurture thing. I'll cut it some slack. I just don't like Rob Zombie's style. I never have. I probably never will. Rob Zombie's just not for me. But that being said, I'm obsessed with the first half of this movie. I really love it. I wouldn't change a thing. I want to see more of it. The second half of this movie, though, because of the 1978 one, I feel like Rob Zombie was a little handcuffed and didn't really have
Mhm.
much wiggle room up until maybe the ending. Um, so it kind of has the feeling of two movies meshed together up until the very, very end. Um, the second half was weak because it's you have to do what we already know. Um, but the creativity with the first half and the prequels and the acting and Child Michael, I like this movie a lot. I think it's a fun watch. I watch it every Halloween. I'm gonna give this one a B minus. Believe it or
Nice.
not, I'm gonna give this one a B minus. That's pretty good. I Most of the
It's a good.
original Halloweens I didn't even give that good of a score, but I like this one a lot.
Yeah, no, I was right there on that B minus C plus area. I'll
Yeah.
probably have to watch it again, and you know, probably a year or so from now, the more times I watch it, I might be willing to even bump it up more. But you know, they do a lot of good stuff in this film. I think at the time for a remake, you know, this was when the remake train was first starting and really starting to get rolling. Now it's like, if you're not doing a remake, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This was really one of the first. And, you know, I think Rob Zombie, you know, he's put in a tough spot where you're not going to make a lot of people happy, and you're going to piss a lot of people off. I think he found that fine line there, and there was some good stuff in this film. And I think over time, this has garnered a more appreciation. I think when it first came out, people just weren't ready for that type of Michael Myers. So I feel like a lot of people did not like it. But now, as it's, gotten over time, it's been over, a little bit over 10 years. I think a lot of people have appreciated it, and I certainly have appreciated it more. And I enjoyed it this time more than any other time I've seen it.
Good.
So, with that being said, we will now move on to Halloween 2. 2 years later, 2009, by Rob Zombie. I remember I ordered this movie on demand one time when I was a kid. I remember when that was a big thing. And I remember watching the opening scene in the hospital, and I was like, dude, that shit is fucked up. Because in that hospital scene, dude, he goes off on these people. He goes off. And just to step back for a minute, this is where I think this is where Rob Zombie really wanted to go. I think this was, the studio was just kind of like, look, you made us a lot of money. Like, okay, whatever, just do what you want with the second one. And he was like, okay. So he really goes there. We've got the stuff with the white horse and the ghost and his mom. And, I really still don't understand it. I'm hoping you can kind of break it down for me some. But this is only like the second time I've ever actually seen this movie. And every review series I've looked at, every article I've read, people like hate this movie. Like, most people despise this movie. And there are those few people in there that say this is a underrated gem. You have no idea what you're missing. Where do you fall in that camp?
So obviously the 2007 one is one I watch every year. The 2009 one, for this review, is the third time I've watched it. And in terms of where I fall, obviously I just gave 2007 a B minus. So obviously I know where we're coming from, and I know where we can go from here. This is hands down the worst Michael Myers movie ever made.
Wow. He said it.
This is horrendous. This is like if Halloween Resurrection was a migraine headache. That's what it is. This is absolutely terrible. I hate this movie. I will never watch it again for the rest of my life.
Really? Wow.
It's so bad and so stupid. Now, I take it back. I don't hate this movie. Hating this movie would require it to matter. This movie doesn't matter at all. Halloween fans could go their entire lives seeing the 11 or 12 other movies and never watching this one, and they wouldn't miss a beat. This movie is the least Michael Myers, the most Rob Zombie, the most annoying, the ugliest, the worst sounding. I cannot say enough bad things about this movie. I don't hate this movie just because I don't care about it. If I cared about it and it was the last thing we had, or there was a part 3, or it went anywhere from there, if it had more of a lasting impact on me as a Halloween fan, I would hate this movie. I don't hate this movie because I don't care about it. It's just some piece of trash that came in my box set and I watched once. There's nothing good to say about this. I will move on. I can get a lobotomy tomorrow and forget this whole movie, and I wouldn't know a difference.
Wow. I did not expect that. Oof. Okay.
This is the worst Halloween movie of all of them, and I was waiting so long to reveal that.
Man, you really set me up there. I'm not gonna lie. After you really like number one, I was like, oh, okay. Well, we'll see what he thinks about number 2. Ooh, okay. I'm in the same ballpark as you in terms of how many times I've seen it. I've only seen it like twice. And the last time I watched it was I was probably like 11, 12 years old whenever it like came out. I just remember the first 20 minutes in the hospital where he just, stabbing the hell out of this lady. With that being said,
I want to hear your thoughts though. I want you to change my mind on it because I want to give it a chance, but I don't know. I can't see the good. I
It's
can't.
good. It's going to be hard for me to change your mind because I've only seen it like 3 times. So what I say is not going to be like, yes, this is what you're missing. You're missing this point. I will say what I think about it. I know a lot of people said they hated this movie. A lot of people strongly dislike it, like you did. I went in with preconceived notions about how bad it was going to be. I walked away. I thought it was okay. I really didn't hate it that much. The horse and the white horse and the Michael trying to bring his family together. And again, I could be wrong on this point. I'm probably going to need to go do some more research about what is happening. But Michael seeing this ghost of his mom and this white horse, and then the younger version of himself, and they're trying to bring their family back together. Like, is it Halloween? No, it's not. But it's Rob Zombie just doing whatever he wants, and I feel like the first half of the second half of the first movie was him doing a fan service to people the original, and the second one he was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I respect him for that. Is it the best? No, it's not, but I didn't hate it. I don't love it. I didn't hate it. It just was kind of like, okay, that was different.
Yeah, it's you hit the nail on the head. It's Rob Zombie doing what Rob Zombie wants to do. The studios saw the success from 2007. They loosened up the reins on him. They said, "Look, you're gonna have some more creative freedom. I don't want a shot-for-shot remake of Halloween 2 because it wasn't that good. Whatever you got, man, let's just go for it. Have fun with it." And Rob Zombie did, and boy, oh boy, did he really jerk himself off with this one, because this is just a Rob Zombie music video slash Rob Zombie porno slash Rob Zombie gore fest movie with a couple trademark Halloween character names slapped on it. It's terrible. It's the worst. Laurie is nothing. Loomis is a complete 180 from what we have ever even thought to see. Michael Myers isn't even Michael Myers in this movie. So what the hell are you doing? Like, just change the names of the characters and just make your own Rob Zombie movie. Don't call it Halloween 2.
It, I'll start out with this. I know I mentioned earlier, you asked me what I thought about Loomis. Listen, I've seen every Halloween movie except for this one multiple times. We all get what Dr. Loomis, what he is, what Donald Pleasance was, what he has done, his character. We get it. We love it. But I like this complete 180 turn of him being an absolute dick. It just, to me, it's just like, that's something that could really happen, is like someone could be in, and that's stuff that does happen. People, they're involved in these events kind of, and then they just take their 15 minutes of fame and they run with it and they try to cash out with it. And it's not like a thing I like watching, but it's interesting. And I just kind of like the fact he's like, I don't give a shit. I'm here to make my money. I'm going to sell my books. I don't care. It's different. I liked it. It's not the same Loomis we see going after Michael saying, oh, well, yeah, he's evil on 2 legs. We need to stop him. I've seen that 100 times. I don't need to see it again. So for him to just do a 180, and I know it's going to piss a lot of people off because Loomis, other than Michael, is everyone's favorite character. I actually enjoyed it. I liked it.
I get it, because I feel like anyone in that situation where they look after the psychopath patient who becomes huge headliner, like, is gonna want to write a memoir or an autobiography, like, I was there. Look at the things you never knew about Michael Myers. Dude, they'll cash out on it. Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the Dahmer series on Netflix. People are cashing out on it. People love the true crime stuff. So I get it. I get why it happened. But I would just as soon see Dr. Loomis turn evil and start helping Michael Myers before you took the most likable character in the history of this franchise and made him the most unlikable character in this entire franchise. The absolute gall of this filmmaker to do that, dude. Like, I would rather you just have him give up and kill himself. Like, there's 100 other things you could have done with Loomis rather than make him this. And for what? I mean, all you're doing is glamorizing that you failed as a psychiatrist. So I get it, man. They were trying to do something smart about it, and trying to do, if the first movie's theme was nature versus nurture, this movie's theme is an exploration into the effects and how PTSD and traumatic situations affect people differently. And
Right.
obviously, it's clear with Lori, it's clear with Annie, clear with Brackett, clear with Loomis, even clear with Michael. I get it, but I feel like this movie tried to tell us it was smart rather than showing us it was smart.
I think that's a fair point. I think out of all the sequels that show Lori, after the aftermath of what happened in the first film, even after Halloween 18, the way she is in this movie, she is fucking off her rocker, dude. Like psychosis needs to be locked up. I don't even know.
Hey,
She's a functioning member of society. I mean, the dream she's having and the way she's acting, and just it made me feel like someone that had really gone through a situation like that. I mean, obviously, certain people handle situations in better ways than others, but I mean, she is just off the deep end, dude.
yeah, and I get it. It's like I said, people deal with trauma differently. Her version of it is drinking, doing drugs, and rebelling, and just not taking care of her hygiene and stuff like that. Like just completely falling off the deep end here and hitting rock bottom. Um, but like, but this is Laurie Strode. Remember, she's the good girl out of the promiscuous friend group. Like this is the bookworm who I'm unsure if I'm going to get a date, and now you're just doing this. Like I would rather you invent a new character. They invented Jamie, they invented Rachel. I would rather you just invent a new final girl, and that way we can actually not compare her against Jamie Lee Curtis, and just see where it goes from there. Maybe then I could see some kind of development here. But this is just whiny bullcrap. Like I just don't like it. It's annoying. I don't like her at all. And maybe it's intentional, and the actress did a good job with that. But the only person I was really paying attention to was Annie. That's because it was Danielle Harris. That's because the way she dealt with the trauma was a little more grounded and realistic. She was like a little more timid than she was in the first movie. But I don't know, man. I'm trying not to drag the vibe down too much, but I got
You're
nothing
good. No, this makes it interesting. My counter argument to that, I guess, would be, you know, I, I've been to school with people throughout high school, well, I would say middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, that were always the goody goody, went to school, got good grades, and they were, I just hope I get a boyfriend, the nice little every girl. And then take a look now, you look at them, there's a couple of them, while they're not this crazy, you're like, wow, this person really did a complete 180. Maybe some shit went down in their life. And that's how kind of I thought about it. And obviously, that's a terrible situation and everyone reacts to stuff differently. But I feel like we've all seen people that were like, well, this person they got it going on. They got their head on straight. They're a good person. Something happens. All of a sudden, they can't even like function. So that's kind of how I thought about it in a way.
Yeah, and you're right about that. That's exactly what they were going for here. And I just feel like if it was maybe a different director or a different writer, maybe it could have been done a little better in a way that would make me like the character or sympathize for them at the least. But
Yeah.
you're the trailer trash in this movie is just ramped up to 11. It's just not pleasant, and it's not I'm not rooting for Lori to come back from this rock bottom. I'm not. And you could have done that. You could have gone like into a whole depression recluse aspect, feeling bad for her. She's missing out on opportunities. She's getting invited to parties and not going. She's drinking and she's scared to go out. She's missing class or whatever, man. Like you could have done it in a way that we would sympathize for her. And same thing with Loomis. You could have done it in a way that we would actually feel something about it. But I just feel like it was just I felt like the characters were giving me the middle finger the whole movie. That's just what I felt like. I felt like Laurie was just like, the whole time. So I don't know. It's a lot of things, man, but I just don't like this movie.
I
I would
will
rather
agree with
just
you in the fact that I don't really root for anyone in the movie. I don't really root for Laurie to come back because it's ramped up to such a level that is a little bit, unrealistic in real life, I would say. But I'm not really rooting for her. I just am kind of like, I kind of want to see like how far this train wreck can go
yeah.
in a way. And so yeah, so Lori's, she's lost and she's having these dreams and of PTSD about what happened, and everybody, just like at the end of after every Halloween movie, they're like, Michael Myers is dead. I'm like, haven't you seen the other 12 movies? He's not dead.
Yeah.
So in Michael in this movie is, a lot of people hate Michael in this movie, and I just saw the look you gave me. I think you're one of them. I don't like the fact that he's maskless. I can get behind the Jason-esque, like he's kind of a rogue character just walking around like in the wilderness. Like, it's not Michael Myers at all, but it's, like I said, it's Rob Zombie's take. It's different. He is a little barbaric. I don't like the half mask, but I don't mind seeing him do something different and kind of just walk around and, just kill people in his path on his way back to Laurie. Give me your thoughts on.
What I said about the last two characters goes for Michael too. I get this whole movie. I'm guess is about characters and how they reel from the trauma of the last movie, and how it changes the course of who they are. And Michael's no exception to this. So obviously, it's going to change who he is. But I just feel like it literally changed who he is, and this isn't even Michael Myers' movie anymore. I get no sense of it's that doughy-eyed kid from the first half of the first movie. I get no sense of that whatsoever. I don't get any kind of attempt at reconnecting with Laurie with the baby picture or whatever. I don't even get a sense that it's the same guy, and like yeah, I could talk surface level and be like, you're gonna make Michael Myers dress like a hobo and take his mask off. Okay. You're gonna make him grunt with every action and actually speak at the end of this movie. And when he does speak, he says something as anticlimactic as what he does. Okay, yeah, fine. I'll give it that. But if you're gonna do something so wildly different, at least do it wildly different in a way that gains the audience's care. Because, like I said, I just don't care about this movie at all. These characters have no reason for me to care about them or follow where they're going. If it was me, I already told you how I would have changed Loomis. I would have told you how I already would change Laurie. How I would change Michael, if you're gonna do something completely different, dude, I'd make him good. I'd make him flip flop with Loomis. I would make him like be like, oh man, like see the error of his ways and like try to make him enhance and like really struggle with some kind of mental stuff and maybe try to talk it out or maybe try to seek Loomis's help, but Loomis doesn't want it, like I don't know. Like if you're gonna do something so wildly off center with these characters, I guess just still try to rein it into where the audience not only believes it but wants to see it see where Laurie goes. I don't like it. I don't want to see where Michael goes because he's just an abomination of what he's been. It's just, and I get the vibe. I get these vibes, man. And it's probably because I don't like Rob Zombie, but I get this really weird suspicion when I see some of these close-up shots of Tyler Mane without a mask and a beard and long hair and a jacket. I really feel like Rob Zombie is projecting himself onto this hulking figure and really trying to convince us that that's Rob Zombie. And I get that vibe that he's projecting really hard on Michael Myers about this, and that's why they wanted to take his mask off.
That's a good
I
point.
don't know.
I never thought about that, but I mean, I've only seen the movie, a handful of times, so that's actually a good point. I could see where you would think that.
Yeah, this movie just it strikes a very wrong chord with me. I appreciate that you shot it on film and it can look real grainy like the old 70s movies, but this movie looks like a headache, man. I don't like it.
What did you think about? Obviously, you didn't like it, but I'm just curious about the whole white horse seeing ghosts, spirit. I mean, am I in the right thing here where his mom is just trying to like get him to bring the whole family back together so they can die together and live in peace? Is that
Horrendously stupid. Horrendous. Probably the worst aspect of this movie. Now, they're trying to add some kind of paranormal edge to Michael and try to add some explanation to his backstory, but we forget what the first movie was like. The mom was the sympathetic member of the family outside of Michael. Like, at least the mom kind of cared about Michael and was like, "Oh, okay, well, why are you doing these things?" Like, and was nice to him, and he felt protective of her. In this, to just be like the mom is the mastermind from the spirit world. What the shut up, man. Like, and the whole redoing the whole child Michael thing in Smith's Grove without Dave Ferris, of course, um with the white horse toy, and it's just like, "Oh, I have dreams about a white horse," which was so clearly not even suggested in the first movie.
yeah?
It's just so not good, man. I feel like Rob Zombie had a treatment for a movie that wasn't fully fleshed out, sitting around, and instead of writing a brand new Halloween 2, he was like, "I got this script I can give you. Like, let's just do something with this." Like, it's just not. It's not good. It's not compelling. It's not believable. I believe a Celtic ritual cult before this. I believe Silver Shamrock has masks to do a ritual before this. I just don't. the- when you don't come up with an idea of an overarching story until the second movie, it never works. You can't shoehorn it into the first movie with as many reshoots as you want. So unless that was your plan from the get-go, at the beginning of Halloween 1 when you were making it, you're like, "Okay, here's where I want the story to go in any sequels if we do it." Okay, fine. Like, I'd be okay with a white horse and a family getting together again when they're dead. Whatever. I don't even know what the whole story is because I just tuned it out, honestly. It's just I feel like, and the foreshadowing with when she's in therapy and she's like, "What's that supposed to be on the wall?" And therapist is like, "What do you see?" She's like, "I see a white horse." Oh, she sees the thing that the movie's shoving down our throats. Whoa, who saw that coming? It just reeks of the movie trying to be smart and artsy, and not actually being smart and artsy, just telling you that it is. I'm all for crazy plot lines and paranormal explanations for Michael and family, bloodline issues, whatever. But you've made me not care. And so, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, and I'm not even saying I'm a fan of what has the white horse, the ghost thing.
I don't even understand it fully. I don't even understand the White Horse fully.
Yeah, I don't understand it 100%. And to anyone watching this review, if you're like, this is what it means, you're missing the point, please comment below. I would love to see that.
Please.
And I will go back and do research and try to do that on my own. But the I the paranormal stuff, I'm not a fan of it really. I mean, it is what it is. But I was really confused by his mom, Sherry Moon Zombie, who in the first movie was very like caring towards Michael and was like, "I love you, I'll do anything for you, like we're gonna get help, like we're gonna do this." So, like, she was there by his side. And now in this one she's like, "No, you're gonna kill, like I could see that if she was that way in the first movie and she was like, she was really demeaning like everybody else, but she wasn't that character, so it kind of threw me off.
She was in denial that he was doing anything. When they were talking about the small animals, she
Yeah,
didn't believe it. She was in
true.
denial that her kid was like that.
So yeah, that would definitely was interesting. And I don't know why they couldn't get a Great Dig back. um I don't know if it was contract dispute or whatever. But the guy they picked over him, it sucks because you really like Daig's character in the first movie, and then you see
Yeah.
the kid, you're like, oh, that's not the same kid. Like, get this kid out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And he wasn't as good as an actor as Dag is.
No, his character in this movie came off as very like sympathetic. Like when they're doing the white horse, he's like, I had a dream about a white horse, and I love you, and this and that. Like in the first movie, he wasn't like that. Like he was very like, can I go home yet? Like
He was very psychotic.
he was like,
He was so good at showing nothing behind the eyes. He was
yeah,
so good at that.
he was good at tricking people. Like when Loomis was like, so do you remember? He's like, remember what? Like,
Yeah.
come on, you know what I'm talking about. But he plays it off like he has no idea. So he did a good job, and it sucked to not have him in this movie. But you know, basically a plot summary of this is it's kind of the same thing a little bit as Halloween. We get this dream sequence, the first 20 minutes that I talked about, where Michael shows up and he tries to get Laurie, which I'm actually I'm a fan of that sequence. I hate that it was a dream. I know it's a recreation of the actual sequel, 1981's Halloween 2, but you know, Michael's brutal. He shows up. He's chasing after her. He's killing people. It's then she wakes up and like she's still having PTSD, and she's pretty much going on through her life just really struggling to put it together. And she's living with you know, Brad Dourif, Sheriff Brackett, and Annie, played by Daniel Harris, and they're all kind of trying to, you know, get along, and she's just kind of off the deep end. And throughout the movie, Michael's just walking along, you know, trying to get back to her. And he starts off, you know, dead, I guess, in the first movie. After the first one, and then he gets in this wreck where these people run into a cow. And he gets out, and there's always a scene in every horror franchise where like they're taking like the bad person away in a van, and there's a wreck, and they get out and they escape. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. But yeah,
I've never seen a cow go flying like that. Though. I laugh my ass off.
I have not seen that, but I guarantee if you ran straight into a cow, like that's probably what would happen. You would be
thing took off.
Yeah, so he has that, and he escapes. And you know, they kind of have this connection where they're having these dreams together about the white horse and, you know, his mom and the smaller version of Michael. And you know, we've got Loomis going off and, you know, trying to profit off of selling his books and telling the story of Michael and how he was like, I was almost a victim of Michael and all this stuff. And we get to this point in the movie where Loomis releases another book, and you know, Brad Dourif is kind of like, he's like, shit, like he tells the secret in the book that they're brother and sister. And then Laurie finds out, she buys the book, and you know, she's completely lost by then. She's like, let's go out and drink and have fun. And then I like the scene where Michael's walking on the road, he sees the billboard for the book, and he's on the cover. He's like, is that me?
Oh my god, it's just so bad, man.
It's yeah. And then, you know, basically we get this ending where kind of like the first, where, you know, Michael's coming after Laurie. She comes down after this party. He's killed so many people, and then he kills Daniel Harris. He kills Annie off, and he's going after Laurie, and they're both walking off into the woods. And then they kind of get in this standoff in like this cabin in the woods, and the police are all out there, and they're surrounding it. And then Dr. Loomis hears it on TV, and he's like, shit. And so he goes out there and tries to talk to him. And just this, like the thought of like Michael Myers in like a hostage situation where they're like, come out with your hands up. Like, dude, this man doesn't even talk. You think he's going to listen to you?
Yeah, like, what are you trying to do? Like, this is Michael Myers. You've got a helicopter above the cabin. Why do you try? This dude's gonna kill whoever's in there. Get in there, man. Like, I don't know, man. It's just such a detour from what we know. And obviously, Loomis gets to the cabin with Michael, and they have that wonderful moment where Loomis says something,
But
And,
before you
and
go into that, I just want to say, I know you don't like this scene, but I actually enjoy this scene where Loomis shows up and he's like, he goes in there, he's like, let me try to help. And, Sheriff Brackett punches him. He's like, fuck you, get out of here. And he's like,
yeah,
okay. And then he like just walks around and he ends up walking in. He's like, I have to do this. Like, deep down, he knows what he's been doing is wrong. So he has a small arc where he's like, I'm going to try to make it right. And he goes in and go ahead.
yeah, and he tries to redeem himself. And he tries to talk some sense into Michael. And then what exactly does he say again? I don't even remember. He prompts Michael. I don't remember.
He's like, Michael, she's coming with me. You have to let her go. And he's just like kind of standing there. Like he obviously like in Lori's perspective, she's being held back by the smaller version of Michael. And then his mom is like, it's time, blah, blah, blah. But then all he sees is her just like wallowing around on the ground. And he's like, you need to come with me. You need to come with me. And Michael's just kind of like,
standing there.
he's just looking back and forth.
Yeah, like the whole like Lori is imagining the ghosts that are holding her down, and Loomis doesn't see that, but the ghosts are really there, and one of them is a ghost of a kid, and it's not even the same kid, and it's Sherry Moon Zombie. Like, oh boy, man. Like this is a really edgy music video and nothing more. And Michael Myers commits the cardinal sin twice in this movie. He reveals his face. I was like, oh, okay, we're watching a Tyler Mane movie. We're not watching a Michael Myers movie. But then at the end, when he's facing Dr. Loomis, he grabs Loomis by the coat, and Michael Myers says the one thing that we've been waiting for him to say. He goes, die. And he just tries to kill Loomis. Like, you know, one word. He had one word.
I'm not going to defend this movie, but I've enjoyed some parts of it. But you've already shown Michael's face, and you've already done this. At this point, I'm like, I'm not a fan. You can have like the half mask and like the really weathered mask, and you can see some of his face. I'm okay with that, but showing his whole face, it's like it ruins the mystique. But having him talk, it's like, man, come on, you can't do that. You can't do it.
Right.
And I'll even give you this: if you are gonna have him talk, just to say die and then stab Dr. Loomis, it's like could have said something maybe a little. I mean, I don't expect him to go on this huge like monologue about how he failed him or anything, but it's just like, man, it's sometimes like it's better just to not have him say anything than to just say die.
Like if he in Halloween ends up saying something like at the end of his life, if he dies in this movie, I don't know. At the end of the movie, if he ends up finally saying something, I think if he said, I'm sorry, I think I'm not a screenwriter, but I think that would have a way bigger gut punch to the audience than anybody else.
It would.
Like if Michael said, I'm sorry, or anything similar to that, like I think that would be really dope. And I think if he said it in this movie, it'd be kind of dope. But he doesn't say it. It's just a mindless killing machine. Just all misdirection and all just way down the wrong trailer trash path. It's just so whatever, dude. Whatever, dude. I was mad about this movie.
Yeah. So and the ending goes where, Michael, he stabs Loomis and then he walks out and around all the policemen and they pretty much unload on his ass, which we've seen 10 gazillion times. They should have just dropped a nuke at this point.
Yeah, right.
I know this is a different timeline, but they shoot him and he falls on the ground. And then Lori comes out and, you think like, oh, she's safe, but I guess she's under the spell or whatever, or ready to be with her family, can't take this life anymore. And she goes to pick up the knife and she's going to go over there and stab Loomis. And it's playing in slow-mo and Sheriff Brackett's like, oh, like, don't shoot. And they unload on her. And then she dies, and they all are end up being a family together in heaven, hell, purgatory, or whatever you want to call
Ends with Lori and Sherry Moon Zombie and the White Horse and their Evanescence music video walking towards each other and smirking and cut to black.
it. Okay, so that is Rob Zombie's 1 and 2. We already got the grade for Rob Zombie's 1. I am very interested to see what you grade this film. Jeff, what are you grading Rob Zombie's Halloween 2?
This movie gets an F-.
Oh, wow.
This is the worst Halloween movie ever made. It will never be worse than this. F- is as low as I can go. There is nothing good about this movie. There's nothing I like about this movie. There's nothing interesting about this movie. And this movie was already doomed to fail because I can appreciate a brand new timeline starting from scratch in the original movie as a remake and carrying on from there. Like if you had a trilogy planned, like, okay, I get it. But you never had a trilogy planned. So before this movie was even dropped, I didn't care what came after the original. And once it ended and the credits started rolling, I immediately was like, oh, that didn't matter because this is so detached from everything. This is basically never happened. Huh. I don't hate this movie because hating a movie is an active feeling. I have no active emotions towards this movie. I don't care about it. I care about this movie as much as I care about 13 going on 30 or Eraserhead. I don't care about it. I'm not going to watch it again. I don't have to watch it to get to number 3. I can just watch number 1 and pretend number 2 never existed. It just doesn't matter. And it's just so nothing. Like Halloween Resurrection, I gave a flat F because it was bad. But obviously the people who like the horror movies that are so bad they're good or so bad they're funny, like they can get something out of it and we can have a fun time reviewing it. I didn't have a fun time reviewing this. This was a pain in my ass. This was a huge migraine to sit through. And it just, I have no active emotions towards it, so I don't hate it. I got nothing more to say about it. I'll never watch it again for my entire life. It just doesn't matter. And it's gonna go sit on the shelf and I'll trade it in for like $2. That's what's gonna happen with this movie.
All I got out of that was that you didn't like Eraserhead.
Dude, oh man. We're not even gonna go there, man. I'm not gonna watch any of those movies again.
This is kind of tough for me. I'm teetering between two things here.
Go with your gut. Go with your initial reaction, man. You had a different viewing experience than I did.
I'm gonna go with a C- on this movie.
What?
I really did not hate it that much. I like the brutality of it. I like Michael. I'm not a fan of the look, the hobo. You know, I don't even mind the hobo look, but I don't like showing his face. But I kind of like seeing Michael on this journey a little bit. It's different. I like Dr. Loomis's character. I really do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's like a complete 180 than what people have ever seen. And it's different. And most people aren't going to like that. And they didn't like it. I think, Lori's character is, I don't really root for her, but I'm interested to see what happens, I guess. I'm not really a fan of the ghost and the white zombie stuff. But I'm more of a fan of the sister storyline than a lot of people are. So seeing him try to make that full circle is fine. I really didn't hate it that much, but I didn't love it. It was very like, okay, wow, that was interesting. So, with that being, I know you said you didn't like Brad Dourif for Sheriff Brackett. I actually do like him as Sheriff Brackett. I think he does a good job. So with that being said, I'm going to put it in the lower middle. I'm going to go C- here. It's not my favorite. Will I watch it again? Probably. I will watch all these movies again because that's just what I do. But Is it my favorite? No. Can I go on without seeing it again? No, but I'll probably give it another whirl just to see, hey, let me see what I think about it again later on down the road. So I'm going to go C minus.
Okay, yeah, I can appreciate that. Now, answer me this: gun to your head, you have to watch one movie. Is it this movie or is it Resurrection?
Man, that's tough. I'd probably have to go Resurrection, but the only reason I'm saying that is because I grew up with that movie. It holds more nostalgia towards me. Now, if you're asking me would I rather watch The Curse of Michael Myers or Halloween 2, I might have to go Halloween 2. And I never thought I'd say that because I used to like Curse of Michael Myers a lot, but this time, even the Celtic stuff, I did not the Cult of Thorn, I like the brutality of Michael in this film. I like the Dr. Loomis character. Dr. Loomis is almost non-existent in Halloween 6 just because he's so old, he can't help it. I don't know, man. It was interesting. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was okay.
Yeah, well, I give movies three strikes. I give movies three chances. If I still don't like it after my third viewing, I'm never watching it again. Right? I'm not gonna write something off the first time I watch it. Like even the worst movies I've ever seen, I watched three times just to make sure I'm true about it. I don't have a change of heart, but I'm never gonna have a change of heart about this movie. I don't care about it. It's gone. I'm never gonna watch it again. Nobody has to, because obviously it was rebooted 9 years later, or I should say it was retconned and brought back into the original timeline in 2018, which is the next time we see Michael Myers, thankfully. So yeah, if you're marathoning the Halloween movies, yeah, you got to slog through this one just out of tradition. But if you only got time to watch the best of the best for the Halloween franchise, you can forget about this one altogether and not feel bad about it.
I can understand that, and I'm not gonna say I recommend anyone to watch this movie. I would certainly check it out if you haven't seen it, just to see like, wow, these guys are really have a different opinion on this movie. Just it's Rob Zombie's stuff. It's not easy just to you're not really gonna go in his movies and just I really want to watch Halloween 2 and just pop it in.
Yeah, yeah. Let me let
His
me step
movies aren't
back.
like that.
Yeah, if you're a Rob Zombie fan, you might like this movie. I'm not a Rob Zombie fan. I'm never gonna like this movie. But if you like House of a Thousand Corpses or some of the other stuff that he's done, you can watch this movie, and then you know what? You can go on your happy merry way and go watch the monsters this Halloween. All right, but I
The
am not
months.
gonna do that. Not gonna do that.
So yeah, that's Halloween 1 and 2 by Rob Zombie for us. A little bit behind all this stuff, there actually was a planned Halloween 3. It was going to be Halloween 3D for this
Oh,
trilogy, which, listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Rob Zombie's trilogy or two films. No, I'm not. But I don't care who you are. If you're in 3D territory, you are DONE done.
dude,
I'm so
3D
glad that didn't happen.
3D is more hokey and more gimmicky than just going to space with your character. It's so stupid. 3D movies, when has that ever been good outside of your first viewing in the theater? I mean, yeah, I saw Avatar in 3D in 2009. You think I bought a 3D TV just to buy a 3D Blu-ray of Avatar? You're out of your freaking mind. Movies don't look good 3D when you're not in a 3D setting. So it's just a gimmick, man. Like movie theaters are not amusement park rides. Like
No.
you're not there to be, whoa, I can see the blood coming right at me. Okay, buy the Blu-ray, take it home. Tell me if you see it coming right at you.
Yeah, I'm really glad they didn't go this route. And Rob Zombie, he was not going to be involved. He was like, I've had enough of doing the Halloween film. So he wasn't going to be involved. So this kind of sat on the shelf for a while. Was thrown around, canceled, rebooted, canceled. Then they were like, okay, we're not going to do this. And then we had a couple other Halloween pitches that were going to happen. We had a Halloween Returns film that was scheduled to come out, and that was made by I think the director and writers of Saw 4 and 5, and that was really close to coming out. And then that got canned. And then we got to Halloween 2018, H40, H40, whatever you want to call it. And that's where we're headed next. And I think we're both excited to get to this trilogy because we're getting up to Halloween Ends. You know, Halloween 18, I got a lot of opinions on it. We talked about it when it first came out a couple years ago, but I think now that we've seen it a couple more times, we're ready to talk about it. We understand everything. And then we got Halloween Kills. That's going to be a fun one. And then you'll get our initial reaction to Halloween Ends, which they're saying is going to be divisive, but we'll, how divisive will it be?
Man, it can't be more divisive than Halloween 2 in 2009. I'll tell you that much. So look, guys, this has been a long run. It's been a lot of fun with these reviews. Thank you for sticking with us this far in. I'm surprised you made it this far. It has all been leading up to what comes next. The last leg of us doing what we're doing right now is this new Halloween trilogy, 18 Kills and Halloween Ends when it drops in a couple days at the time of this video. So, dude, I'm excited. I'm more excited than I was for Halloween 4 to finally talk about these new modern movies that more people are seeing. I got a lot of opinions on it. Ever since we saw Kills in the theaters last year, I have been itching to talk about it because we've never really talked about it in a format like this. I'm very, very excited to hash it out. I'm feeling the build up for Halloween Ends. I hope you guys are too. Dude, let's knock this out. Let's end strong, right?
Let's end strong. It's going to be good. So next time you see us, we'll be talking Halloween 2018, 40 years after the original, the return of Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers so long ago, but here they are. They're back again, and we can't stay away from it. Thank you guys for tuning in to Every Horror Film Will Horror Us Forever. We'll catch you on the next one.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.